There is a painting called Silence. A woman, white dress, black background. Her eyes are closed, not in sleep exactly, but in a chosen stillness that is its own kind of statement. Her face is so controlled, so completely composed, that the composure itself becomes the subject. You stand in front of it and feel almost before you understand why, that this stillness has been practiced. That it took decades to achieve. That somewhere underneath it, at a depth the surface will not reveal, something is being held with enormous and permanent effort. That is where HELENE SCHJERFBECK lived. Not in crisis, not in collapse, in the space just beneath the surface that doesn't break. In the distance between what was chosen and what was almost chosen, a distance she spent 80 years crossing and never reaching the other side of. She painted that distance over and over, in her own face, in the faces of others, in the backs of heads turned away from us, in women looking out windows at worlds that are no longer quite theirs to want, in girls sitting beside birch trees gazing across water at something that is already on the other side of possible. This is her story, not the biography, the distance. She was 18 when she painted herself for the first time. Helsinki, 1884. A girl with pink cheeks and blue eyes and light brown hair, and the particular expression of someone who has already understood that the world is serious and has decided to be equal to it. She looks at you directly, not boldly, seriously, with the focused attention of someone who has been looking carefully at things since she was old enough to hold a brush and intends to continue. She had been drawing since she was 11. At 11, her teachers were already astonished. At 15, she was admitted to the Finnish Art Society's drawing school, the youngest student they had taken. At 18, she won a travel grant. At 18, she was already on her way somewhere. But before the somewhere, before Paris, before the exhibitions, before the life that was beginning to open outward and become visible, there was a staircase. She was 4 years old. She fell. She injured her hip. It never fully healed. She walked with difficulty for the rest of her life. She lived with pain as a private fact for 80 years, unremarked, unperformed, carried the way you carry something you have decided will not be the reason you stop. Look at the 1884 self-portrait, and you see none of that. You see a girl looking forward. You see a face that has already made its decision. The work is what matters. The work is what I am. Everything else will be managed. She kept that decision for 80 years. In the 1880s, she went to Paris. She studied. She exhibited. She moved among artists the way a person moves through a world that is finally the right size for them, with the relief of it, with the particular ease of someone who has always been slightly too much for the rooms they were in and has finally found a room that can hold them. She won prizes. She was noticed. She copied the masters in the Louvre, Velázquez, Holbein, the great portraitists, with such precision and such understanding that the copies are paintings in themselves, not reproductions but conversations, a young painter talking back to history with total confidence in her right to be part of it. The future was outward, visible, social, moving. There was an engagement, an English artist, the kind of beginning that looks from the outside like the opening of the life that was supposed to happen. It ended. She returned to Finland, partly for family, partly for circumstance, partly in the way that things happen that cannot be fully explained afterward. And the life that had been opening, the outward visible social life of the artist moving through the world, began quietly, slowly, without drama to close. She painted her mother with the eyes of someone who has made their peace with a choice and not quite made their peace with it and lives in that in-between permanently. And then the mirror, not metaphorically actually. She set up a mirror and she looked at her own face and she painted what she saw, and she kept doing it year after year, decade after decade. The willingness to keep looking at the truth even when the truth is your own face, your own. Years, your own slow translation from presence into something more essential than presence. The face is still solid, still recognizable in the conventional sense, but something has shifted in the looking. A distance has entered the eyes, not sadness, not resignation. Something more specific and more unsettling than either. The look of someone asking a question they already know, cannot be answered, and asking it anyway. She begins to strip the face down. The brushwork becomes more spare. Less is rendered. The suggestion of a face rather than the face itself, as if she is beginning to understand that the essential is not in the details, but in the structure beneath the details, in the thing that holds the face together before any particular feature arrives. The palette cools. The face becomes more mask-like, not dead, not theatrical, but simplified the way a thing becomes simplified when you have been looking at it long enough to see past everything that isn't necessary. She is not documenting aging. She is removing the layers of a life that did not fully happen, layer by layer, canvas by canvas, year by year, looking for what is left when everything that was almost is finally, completely gone. The face is mostly white now, the features suggested rather than stated. One eye catches the light, the other is shadow. She looks at you, or through you, with the expression of someone who has been in this conversation with the mirror for 50 years and has arrived at something that is not an answer, but is past the need for one. The dark jacket. The face turns slightly away. The way a face turns when it is listening to something interior that has become more present than anything exterior. Just a mark of pink at the mouth. Just one note of blue at the eye socket. Everything else the color of the canvas itself, as if the face is beginning to return to the surface it was painted on. A face that is almost not there. Marks, structure, the essential geometry of a human head, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth reduced to their most irreducible form. The colors of ash and shadow, and the particular gray-white of something that has burned down to what cannot burn further. She was 83 years old. She had been painting for 70 years. She had looked at her own face in the mirror more times than any painter in history. The impulse to look at the truth of a thing, even when the thing is yourself, even when the truth is your own distance from the life you almost had, even when the looking yields nothing except more looking. She died in 1946, in Stockholm, alone. The mirror she left behind still holds the question she spent 80 years asking, the question that has no grammar in any language, the one the face in the mirror kept asking back. She was not just aging. She was removing the layers of a life that did not fully happen. And what remained at the very end, on that last canvas, in those last marks of ash and shadow, was the looking itself, pure, undimmed, still asking, still